How's it going, everyone? Let's take a little bit of a look at the 90mm f2 from Fuji. This is one of those lenses that really sold me on the system. The 50-140 really was amazing. The 35 1.4 proved that they could do a wide aperture prime lens. And then the 90, when I got it, I was like, holy cow, I can get that really amazing background blur. I could shoot some incredible portraits with this thing. It was just one of those lenses that fit really well for me. It's 135 millimeters in full frame perspective. So for me, it was really something that I enjoyed using because I used to use the 135 with Canon back when I was shooting Canon full frame. So this was a godsend to me. I absolutely loved it when I got it, and I shot a whole bunch of stuff with it, and I've rarely used it since, which is part of the reason I'm getting this out and doing this review, because I want to go take more photos with this. But I thought more people should know how awesome this is. After several years of use, this is one of those lenses that makes me a total believer in what Fuji can do. One of the reasons this lens is so incredible is because of the sharpness, the overall general quality of the photograph. It gives you that feel of separation between the subject and the background that we sometimes don't get as much of with Fuji, because the full frame equivalents have a little bit narrower depth of field, and so the backgrounds are just a little bit creamier. This one, you don't miss any of that at all. This thing is incredible as far as the sharpness and then what the background looks like, right? The bokeh, or however you say that, bokeh, what? I don't know how to say it. So let's just focus on what I can say and look at a couple of these photos. The background's amazing. It's in the fall. The sharpness, though, is really what matters. The eyes are so incredibly detailed right there. You can't help but go and look right in there. And I've just switched my thing for no reason. Again, incredibly sharp. There's just enough range of focus on his face and his chest. And you can see the front of his arms right there are just slightly blurry. It just gives a really great effect. And that background is incredibly rich, contrasty, and very colorful and very blurry. And that's another one at the same family shoot. I love using the 90mm for families. I pulled some of the images that I've done fairly recently, and it's just really sharp, and it throws the background completely out. It's one of my favorite photos there. And then another one here is showing you just the incredible rich sharpness and a rich color and the incredible sharpness that you can see here. It's one of those lenses that, even this is a common picture, right? This is a common scene, just some fall leaves hit by, the backlight with the sun. But the lens renders it so incredibly well that it's a cool photo just because of the lens, not really totally because of me. I just saw this kind of sticking out. That was during the portrait shoot that you just saw, and it looks fantastic. So the first quality of the lens that's so great is some really incredible sharpness, and the richness of the photograph in general just looks really good. Let's examine that background blur just a little bit more and look at what it looks like when you're a little bit farther back. How does that change? Because most lenses, when you're zooming in and you're getting close, you're going to get some blurry backgrounds. But one of the challenges is when you're backing up and you're a little bit farther away, the backgrounds just aren't as blurry. You get a little bit more depth of field. So this is an example of me backing up, and the scene is rendered a little bit more clearly than what you just saw a little bit ago, but it's still really blurry. It's still completely like a 3D separation between the family, this amazing family, one of my favorite families ever, and the background. I'm closer up this time, and I completely obliterate the background. Absolutely. There's all kinds of trees and stuff, and the risk is that you're going to see some branches sticking out of his head like antlers. But the closer you get, you can absolutely control and obliterate that background. This is an amazing shot with that 90mm, just a little bit lower, and getting the foreground and the background to be completely blurry while they are incredibly sharp. The background separation, again, is incredible. Same thing there. I'm a little bit farther away, but the background looks stunning. And a little subtler, I have these 3 photos here. I did a little bit of branding shoot for this photographer, Kurt, one of the best photographers you'll ever meet, one of the nicest guys too. And I'm in a situation where I'm at his studio and I'm shooting him at his desk, and the photos behind him are pretty close to him. I'm getting just the perfect amount of blur where you can kind of see the color and the texture in the background, and yet he pops out just perfectly well. A little bit closer, the background's just a little bit blurrier. You can see the cameras, enough of the cameras in the foreground to kind of add some context. And then this one is the one that really kind of impressed me because I'm fairly far away and the background is just perfectly blurry enough to render. You can know that he's a nature/flower photographer. And when you look at his eyes, though, the sharpest part of the photo is his eyes. There's no sharpening or anything to this photo at all. This is straight out of the camera, and it looks absolutely amazing. I'm also using the classic negative, so that helps me out a little bit too. I love that look. The 90mm f2 is probably Fuji's ultimate portrait lens right now, in my opinion. You have the 56 1.2, which is really good, but this one blows it out of the water in performance. So this thing focuses incredibly fast. It focuses accurately. I'm getting really good results out of the eye tracking with this lens, for instance. And some of the other lenses, like the 56 1.2, I'm just not as comfortable or as confident that it's going to track the eyes like the 90mm f2 does. It does a pretty good job, even though Fuji doesn't necessarily get the most recognition for fastest and most precise autofocus in those regards. For portraits, though, it's one of the best in the entire system. It's incredible. And I think that if you're not using this for portraits, you should consider it. It's a pretty stellar lens. This is a great shot. Dan and Nicole, the background's blurry. It's just a really cool shot. It's meaningful for them. Benson's part of their growing up together, and it's a cool shot that really turned out well, I think. This is me getting closer. This also shows you that during their shoot, we were all over. She was jumping on his shoulders, doing all kinds of stuff. And so I had to keep up with them. And so I was just, swinging the camera around, and the focus was silent. It was fast. Honestly, there's times with Fuji, right? I hate to say it, but sometimes I think it's in focus and it's not always in focus. And it makes me overshoot sometimes. But with the 90, I don't shoot as much because I'm more comfortable knowing that I'm going to get more shots in focus. Even a little bit difficult situations with the backlighting there, and they're just incredibly sharp. The minimum focus distance in this lens is around 2 feet, I think, and that's pretty awesome. You're able to, just standing there, get details. This is really good for portrait and wedding photographers. So I'm shooting portraits of the family. She finds a little leaf, and I'm able to get close enough to get a really good shot of those hands holding the leaf, and get everything else blurry, of course. And it's just really versatile to be able to get that close. Same thing. I'm pretty close. I'm framing it up pretty close. It's fantastic. Difficult lighting, but it's killing the focus here. Very sharp. The lighting's coming almost directly, in from the back. Really, really bright. But the lens is keeping up. The portrait looks fantastic. Same thing right there. Incredible. The eye is just phenomenal. Another difficult portrait situation with the light, but the autofocus nails it. It's a beautiful shot. Look at that background blur, the sharpness, the clarity, the richness of the skin tones. I mean, this thing, I love it. I'm looking at these and they're incredible. And again, the close focus distance helps me to really get very closer than many portrait lenses, in my opinion. Maybe just the ones I've used. And just a stunning photograph with those eyes that you can't help but engage with. This beautiful little soul. That's another one. Gorgeous shot. Very clear. Same thing right there. Lots of chaos around them, but the lens is able to separate the background, which is very close to them. It's able to separate the background from them. Look at that family. Love it. Love that stuff. So I think that the portrait application is the 90 f2's strongest point. Next up is weddings. I think that Fuji is underrated as a wedding system. I think it's perfectly suited for weddings. The lenses are small, they're light, especially in the X-T4, the batteries last quite a while. It is an amazing system. It's great in the rain, most of the Fuji cameras. In general, Fuji's underrated for wedding photography. It was my main wedding photography kit for years. And again, I'm just showing you some of the recent stuff. You'll recognize some of the people from portraits, also then the weddings. I've only done a couple weddings last year, and I'm going to show you a couple of shots and why I think it's such a great lens. This is an example. We're outside. We're right behind. It's in a neighborhood, so you can't really see it, but in the back on the left, there's houses and stuff there, and I had to really be creative on how to get rid of that stuff. So I'm I'm a little bit higher up, shooting, trying to get blurry backgrounds, and it renders everything beautifully. Same thing right there. Incredible. And then I'm getting down low. They're on the top of a hill. I'm a little farther back, and this is a little bit cropped in, but just look how precise that focus is. If you just imagine, this is a prime lens. Focusing incredibly quickly during a wedding is important, right? You want to make sure that you're getting the memories, you're getting the shots. And I know they're just standing there, but every shot that was in the courthouse where they got married and in their preparations was also just perfectly in focus and great. It's a great stand-in for quick little portraits. That's in the courthouse. You could destroy the background so it doesn't look so terrible. And then that's in the courthouse. Difficult lighting. I was ISO 3200, I think, and above because it was so dark in there, and I didn't want to use flash, so I was just shooting f2 at like 1/20th of a second, I think, or something like that. They look fantastic, though. Good separation. Really fast, out of focus, getting those moments. She launched herself at him. High-fiving, getting the shots. Very cool. It's working out great. Look how sharp he looks. And I'm getting tight. You know, that's another wedding where I was getting it close while they were dancing. It just locked focus and got me the shots that I needed every time. So I think that's the last photo of the, I tried to go to the next one. I think that this is an underrated wedding system, and the 90 fits really well in there with the 50 to 140. If you're looking for something a little bit lighter, you want to shoot all day with, this is smaller and lighter than the 50 to 140, but it's not as versatile. So you can zoom in and out with the 50 to 140. So it's give and take. I did a lot of weddings with both. Finally, I wanted to show you some examples of nature. I'm a nature and landscape photographer mostly now. That's what I do for fun and for enjoyment more than anything else. And this is a great lens to be able to pick out details in nature and really separate it. Another shot. Look at how smooth and creamy that is. And you can see down here right there some amazing spider webs that is crisp and in focus as well. Good stuff. This was like a dark day. It was about to storm. I was using ISO 3200. I think I was at 1/60th. It was getting almost nighttime, and it's still a fantastic photo, in my opinion. These little babies next to me, that they were only there one more day, got them before it stormed. I think the 90 f2 does a good job with that stuff. Here's one of the magical, they call it magical when the background blurs like this. I do, at least. It's just, once again, great focus. I'm using autofocus here, and I'm locking on to that. I think that's called a cat's tail. And it just really does a great job of quickly locking focus. And the background is incredible. The sun's coming in from behind everything. One of those shots. This one is not like the best shot on earth, but it is neat just because of how magical that background blur is. It goes from, there's a lot of stuff right close to me, which kind of confuses everything a little bit in the front. But the lens is so sharp that what is in focus stands out because of that. And then, of course, you go a little bit farther back and everything gets obliterated and just gone. So it really provides a different perspective when you're out in the field. There's not a lot in the Fuji system that could obliterate backgrounds like this. You can get really close with like the 50 to 140. 56 1.2 does a decent job. But I think out of all the lenses that I've used for Fuji so far, the 90 f2 has the most magical background blur, something that I need to take more advantage of and do a little bit more with. As you can tell, I really love this lens, and I'm not ashamed to say there's very little not to like. I can't even really think of what not to like. Maybe is it a little heavy? I don't know. It's just magical. It focuses quickly every time. Maybe it's not even magical. Maybe it's just, it does its job incredibly well. It focuses fast. It has incredible sharpness. It is silent, weather resistant. What else? What else can we say? It's a great lens. Probably one of the top lenses in the entire system, and really one that you should consider if you do a lot of portraits. And I think even if you do some weddings, I think it's a great lens. If you have any questions, anything at all, throw them down below. Anybody who knows, I love teaching and I love helping people. So if you have something you want to say, I'll jump in there. I'll respond. I'll help you out a little bit. Maybe I have an example that you might want to see. I don't know. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you later.